Welcome to Equipping Ministries training on establishing and maintaining boundaries. The class covers what are boundaries, setting boundaries, saying no without feeling guilty, and the Mara spirit. This session will be taught by myself, Pamela Smith, and the second session will be taught by Helen Kearney of Nashville, Tennessee. Boundaries set limits, and they are necessary if you are to effectively serve as an administrator. Boundaries must be established, enforced, and maintained if you are to effectively serve in your role as an administrator working for your church. Boundaries protect your church. They protect your pastor. Boundaries protect you. Boundaries mark where my responsibilities end and someone else's begins. Without limits, we as people tend to push ourselves or others beyond measure. Without our wisely and timely saying this far and no more, we allow ourselves to be manipulated, even by our own emotions or guilt. Sometimes we talk ourselves into feeling guilty when we have to say no, or to be bullied by others' demands. We must realize that even God set boundaries. If you read Deuteronomy chapter 2, especially verses 4 through 5, you will see that when the children of Israel were passing through Seir, where Esau's descendants were, God told them that the children of Esau were afraid of them. But the children of Israel better not meddle with them. God said, and command you the people, saying, you are to pass through the coast of your brethren, the children of Esau, which dwell in Seir, and they shall be afraid of you. Take ye good heed unto yourselves, therefore, meddle not with them. For I will not give you of their land, no, not so much as a foot breadth, because I have given Mount Seir unto Esau for possession. That scripture should free us and recognize that even God sets boundaries, and when he tells people this far and no more, that is exactly what he means. God let them know that they were not to bully their way into possession in a land that was off limits to them. When we wrongly infringe on the kindness and generosity of others, they take advantage of their willingness to serve. We have crossed boundaries. We must understand that boundaries are healthy. They preserve your strength to be used on God-given assignments. Without boundaries, we push ourselves too far and we lose our strength. Boundaries help us to know that we can't be all things to all people. Boundaries will help prevent burnout. Burnout can lead to more than just physical tiredness, but to spiritual weariness, unforgiveness, and bitterness. We can only serve effectively when we are not burned out. Setting boundaries will help to deliver you from the need to please everyone and empower you to serve in a way that pleases God. Setting boundaries is not raising walls, but actually tearing them down. Setting boundaries help you to overcome a spirit of rejection. Often the root of rejection will cause us to respond erroneously to others. The word rejection itself means to be tossed aside. So unconsciously, in the mind of a person battling with a root of rejection, this person may rather be walked all over of than walked out on. So that's why it's so important to deal with, if you battle in this area, you need to get that under control and take it to the altar and allow God to heal you and deliver you from that. So let's look at setting boundaries. The first thing we need to do, we need to know what our assigned responsibilities are. You may assist others, but do not feel the burden to take on everyone's responsibilities. Don't just take over departments, and when you're asked to help, don't just take it over. There was one young lady that I was working with, and she had a tendency that when asked to help out in the department, she would take complete control, and it caused chaos because Department leaders will be calling saying, I don't know who she thinks she is. And I just asked her to help me and now she's completely taken over. And so you have to recognize that when you ask for assistance, assist, not take over. Know what your assigned responsibilities are. The next thing is know what God is entrusting you with and know what he is not entrusting to you. Stay in your lane. Ministry assistants must remember that they are not the senior pastor. You have to recognize that you are not the senior pastor. Operate within the boundaries delegated to you. This eliminates a lot of confusion. It also, because here's the thing that you need to understand is that in your position as a ministry assistant, you can cause more chaos when you begin to take over things or cross over what people believe boundaries that you're crossing over, and it causes them to be standoffish of you. It causes them to criticize and begin to talk about you. It stirs up confusion and it stirs up bitterness and resentment. So operate only within the boundaries that your pastor has released you to. Do not overstep. Do not take on the role of senior pastor. That is not your assignment. Next, do not allow yourself to be strong-armed into assuming what is beyond your ability and strength to handle. Hold others accountable for their responsibilities. We must come to terms and understand that the church is God's business and he does not require us to always bail his people out. Ministry makes us accountable. God wants his people to be mature in their commitments. Read the letters that Paul wrote to the churches. He was constantly telling them to mature, accept what you've said you're going to do. He was very orderly in the administration and in instructions that he gave to those that he entrusted assignments to. I encourage you to read chapter 3 of the book, Boundaries, When to Say Yes and How to Say No by Drs. Cloud and Townsend. In this particular chapter, they share that controllers do not respect others' boundaries. It gives the scenario of Frank, who was an administrative assistant who had been in the position for years but had reached his limit. His supervisor frequently insisted he work for unpaid hours on important projects. At his supervisor's request, Frank switched his vacation time twice. Then the supervisor called Frank at home nightly with assignments. This was his routine, to just call Frank, and Frank said it often it was during his dinner time. Frank tried several times to talk to the supervisor, but it did not change the supervisor's behavior. He had trouble hearing and accepting boundaries. According to Cloud and Townsend, when controllers hear the word no, it is simply a challenge to change the other person's mind. Controllers can't respect others' limits. They resist taking responsibility for their own lives, so they need to control others. In chapter 3 of the book on boundaries, a profound observation is made. I'm going to read to you what Dr. Cloud and Dr. Townsend said. They state that the primary problem of individuals who can't hear no, which is different from not being able to say no, is that they tend to project responsibility for their lives onto others. That's a powerful observation. They use various means of control to motivate others to carry the load intended by God to be theirs alone. Controllers look for someone to carry their individual responsibilities in addition to their crisis and crushing burdens. Now, I know as a ministry assistant, you can relate to that, and even pastors can. The chapter continues by classifying the two types of controllers. One are the aggressive controllers. These people clearly don't listen to others' boundaries. They run over other people's fences like a tank. They are sometimes verbally or physically abusive, but mostly, according to the book, they are unaware that others have boundaries. The second type of controllers are manipulative controllers who try to persuade people out of their boundaries.